back from Pittsburgh, ready to go live for the first time in about 4 or 5 days. And it is coming off of a major victory for the 49ers. I'm sure you can hear in my voice, it is still gone from Sunday. I'm going to try my best to push through this. And if not, Ryan will definitely pick up the gaps. I'm sure he's a professional.
I'm pro.
We got a ton to talk about, Ryan. I'm so excited. I got a lot that I saw at the game, and I know that there's a lot that you saw, but I haven't gotten most of those feelings out or those thoughts out, so I'm excited to do so, and we're going to do it right after this. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And this is the new one. This is the second time doing this show. Ryan, how you doing, my man? We're going to try to do this at noon Eastern every Tuesday.
Yes, sir.
How you doing, bud?
I'm good. First of all, I want to say I discovered how dope my intro music is with these headphones, and now I just discovered yours. Because if you listen to these headphones, there's some nice lows in there, man. It's exciting. You sound like you've been gargling thumbtacks for the last 2 days, but you're gonna pull through it, man.
I basically have been gargling thumbtacks for the last 2 days. Is what's happened here. This is absolutely crazy right now. But yeah, I had so much fun, Ryan. I got to tell you, Pittsburgh, anybody who has not been to Pittsburgh to watch a game, I highly recommend it. That fan base is knowledgeable. They're extremely friendly. They're just very, very nice. Of course, there was some razzing back and forth, but I got to tell you, even before the game, leading up to the game, walking around downtown, everybody was so dang nice. It was the exact opposite of what you would expect from, like, let's say Philly, which I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if it would be like Philly. I didn't know. I really didn't know what to expect. And I was overwhelmed in a good way with how great Pittsburgh was. Not only as a city, I thought it was a beautiful city to visit as well, but the people, I thought they were phenomenal. So shout out to Pittsburgh. And even at the end, well, not the end, but when people started leaving in the third quarter, you know, I was waving at them as they were leaving. I was like, thanks for coming. We couldn't have done it without you. Appreciate it. And they're like, they just were so nice about it. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, Eagle fans are their own brand of trash. Yeah, but Pittsburgh is actually a beautiful city. Good people. I know a lot of good people from Pittsburgh, man. So yeah, I heard it's beautiful. And yeah, man, I heard you had a good time. I heard you had brunch with a guy by the name of Grant Cohn, and he had a BLT. I don't know. I don't know what you had though.
I also had a BLT. In fact, this is how it went down. He goes, "What are you having? Because whatever you're having, I'm having." I go, "Well, I'm having a BLT because I want something light." He's like, "That's what I was thinking. BLT's perfect." So we both had BLTs.
That's a great story. I wish it was caught on video. We could have watched it.
I know we really should have taken a picture, but
yeah.
Anyways, lots to talk about, Ryan. And I know that you saw the game. This is what's cool is I saw the game live, right? And so a lot of my thoughts and or emotions are coming from riding really high of being at the game. And you got to watch it on TV, which is a completely different experience, by the way. And so I think we get to come at this possibly from two different angles. I'm sure that overall the thoughts will be similar, but I got to imagine that we might have seen a couple things differently. But before we fully get into it, let me get to these super chats real quick. Yes, we got Keenan says, "Good morning, bang, bang, Niner gang." Absolutely. Appreciate you, Keenan. And then Nick, what's up, Nick? Nick was there. Nick was my like +1. We sat next to each other at the game. Anybody that doesn't know Nick, he's an OG. Used to be with Nothing But Niners, one of the founders over there. And work and life kind of took over, but he's a fantastic person. In fact, I left my my mics, my like lapel mics with him, so he's got to send those back. Send them back, Nick. But he says, "Much love, buddy. I appreciate you, Nick. It was great seeing you this weekend, man. I had a lot of fun with you." All right, let's get into it. There were a lot of questions, Ryan, going into this game. Tons of questions from, is Jake Moody any good? The run defense, how prepared are they going to be? Who's opposite of Bosa? What's that going to look like? Overall, how do you feel about those questions. What questions were answered for you, and maybe what questions are still left unanswered for you?
Yeah, I think there's a lot, but Jake Moody is the biggest question answer to me. Like off top, like I was worried about Jake Moody. Like, what was he going to look like? He didn't look good in the preseason, and he came out and answered, man. So that makes me feel a whole lot better. I was concerned about that, and hopefully it continues. And yeah, so that's a big one off the top that makes me feel a lot better. I mean, there's so many other ones. I think the biggest one outside of that was Brock Purdy. Like, is he going to look worse? Is he going to look the same? Is he going to look better? I think he looks better than he did last year, which is remarkable coming off that UCL injury. Great to see Brock Purdy. Another question was Colton McKivitz. That one I'm still a little out on. We need to see more, I think, because TJ Watt is a tough opponent for anybody. But that one is still TBD, I think. I mean, I can keep going, but maybe I should give you a couple.
Well, I think when we get to some areas of opportunity, for sure, we'll definitely talk about Colton McKivitz. I have a different take when it comes to McKivitz, maybe a different take than what I'm seeing a lot of other people have. But as far as the questions that were answered, okay, so I'll just give you all the things that I was asking before the game, which was, how can we trust Jake Moody going into this game, knowing that everything he did in the preseason was rough? And then when it came down to the final preseason game, he didn't even play. So we heard that Pittsburgh was a tough place to kick. I'm like, oh gosh, like I just hope that it works out for him. And it did. I mean, he couldn't have been any better. And I'm so happy for him, because it was really one of those situations, and people can say what they want, but kickers are not guys that you give years to develop. They either are or they are not. And once they start to get the yips, you got to just be done with them. And if he had come out this game and, let's say, missed 2 field goals and an extra point, or just looked awful, they could not continue to ride with them. They can't. They could not take that risk in a win now season. So I am happy for Moody that not only did he not have the yips, but he was perfect, not from a percentage standpoint, but literally every kick right down the middle. And what's crazy is pregame, he was missing a lot of kicks. And I was like, oh gosh, I don't know how this is going to go. And Nick, who just left the super chat, he's the one that brought it to my attention. He's like, you see him shanking these things? And so I started watching, I'm like, yeah, he's kind of shanking these. So we were a little worried. Like, he had every reason to fold, and he didn't. And I love that for him. I'm so happy for Jake Moody. I was curious, though. One of the big points of getting Jake Moody early that people talked about was he should be there for kickoffs, and he didn't even kick off. So I don't know if that was because he was injured or if they just prefer Mitch. Either way, happy for Jake Moody. That was a big question mark. Another question mark, run defense. What would it look like? They struggled in the preseason. We know that Javon Hargrave is not the best run defender. And they answered the question. Yes, they can defend the run still. They're going to be okay, or at least early on. We'll see what it looks like, progressively throughout the season. I don't want to overreact, but it was a question mark. And at least for week 1, that question got answered. They're fine there.
Yeah.
Another question was preparedness. We talked about, and I think almost everybody that makes content for the 49ers was wrong about this game in one way or another, myself included, which is I picked them to win. Some people didn't, but I did pick them to win. So I'll take credit there, I guess. But I was still so wrong on how that game was going to be played out. And one of the things that I think a lot of us talked about and pointed to was, first of all, 49ers are traveling cross country. Yeah. They're going into a hostile environment. They're playing a Mike Tomlin coached team, which is always prepared, especially week 1. Right. And a team that played their starters in all 3 preseason games. Like, if a team was going to be prepared, it was going to be the Steelers. And I don't know how good the Steelers are or are not, Ryan. But one thing I do know is that they were going to be prepared, or so I thought. And maybe they were, and the 49ers are just that much better. But the 49ers were the team that played with desperation. The 49ers were the team that punched in the mouth first. The 49ers were the team that looked ultra prepared. And it was just an unknown because we didn't really get to see a lot of it in the preseason. We didn't know for sure what it would look like. And it really almost couldn't have looked any better. So that question was answered. And then I think the last question for me was, who's opposite of Bosa and what's that going to look like? Well, so far so good. Drake Jackson is coming into his own. He's a freak athlete. We know that. And yes, he got 3 sacks. I think a lot of those were kind of a product of pressures from other people. But either way, the fact that he was able to clean up and also the way that he flattens out along the line, I think his athleticism and the way that he plays mobile quarterbacks potentially could be a difference maker. One thing that we talked about with this team for so many years is, can they contain mobile quarterbacks? I think Drake Jackson might change that narrative for them. I really do believe that, because just the way that he played against Pickett and was able to corral him whenever he wanted, and just his overall athleticism, he might be the reason why mobile quarterbacks aren't able to do what we're kind of used to them seeing prior to this year. So I was extremely ecstatic about those questions being answered this week for me.
Yeah, there are a lot of them. Drake Jackson, man, I think he's not getting quite enough credit. Yes, he was able to clean up, but man, that guy's so athletic. He chased a couple guys down.
Yeah,
it's not just like he was right there and the quarterback just came to him. He went and got those guys. So shout out to Drake Jackson, because I think people all offseason have been saying, what are they going to do at the end? What are they going to do at the end? And I'll toot my horn here. I said that Drake Jackson is going to step up, and I think the Niners believe in him, and that's why they're not going after another DN. And he looked great, so that was great to see as well. I mean, there are a ton of questions. Steve Wilkes was a question for me. Like, is he going to be on his P's and Q's from the jump, or is it going to take some time? Like, I think on Tuesday when I was with you, I thought the Steelers were going to win. I changed my opinion on Wednesday. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I said Niners going to win, but I thought it was going to be close. And I was concerned about Steve Wilkes and his play calling, just being on top of it from the beginning and having some time to adjust. But that wasn't an issue. I don't know if it's just the 49ers defense is just so damn good that part is really unimportant. But the 49ers defense looked phenomenal. I think they're going to be better this year. And a lot of the reason is because of, for one, I think Drake Jackson looks good. And then 2, Hargrave and Armstead next to each other in the interior is tough, man. Inside pressure, we haven't seen that since Buckner left on the 49ers, and that makes a huge difference. I think Nick Bosa and Drake Jackson are going to eat all year because of the pressure that's coming up the middle and forcing those quarterbacks to run outside.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. And I don't really the other thing, a lot of people. Obviously, the quarterback position has been talked about all offseason. Right. And for me, on Thursday when I talked with Larry and Vish, we talked about our expectations for Brock Purdy. And my expectations were, just look like you did last year. Please just look as good as you did last year. I don't need you to go and do crazy stuff or play out of your mind, because the expectation for Purdy was, he's got to make all these leaps. And I think throughout the year, we've got to see the improvement. But the whole thing is, he didn't have an offseason to improve. He had an offseason to rehab. And so for me, if he looked as good as he did last year, I'm good with that, especially week 1. And I think he looked to me exactly like he did last year. And that's not a knock. That's a good thing, because last year it was good enough to go to an NFC championship. And maybe if he was able to play against the Eagles, we don't know how that would have ended, but maybe they could have beaten the Eagles. Maybe they could have competed in a Super Bowl. That's a question that we don't know the answer to, but we feel a lot better knowing that he looks every bit as good as he did last year early on. And that means he can only ascend from here. He can only improve from here. He didn't get that offseason to improve. He was forced to rehab all offseason. Now that he's playing again, and at least the starting point to me is even with what it was last year, which is a great thing. It can only go up from here is what the hope is. So I said that Purdy played well. We'll talk about it. Yeah. I personally think he was basically the same guy. And again, that is not a knock. That is a positive. And after the game, in my post game, I said Brock Purdy looked phenomenal. And what I meant by that was he met every expectation that I had for him. And that made me feel good about the situation. It made me feel very comfortable about the quarterback situation, and knowing that we're in good hands, and hopefully we can see it get better from here because he hasn't reached his ceiling. Real quick though, why do you think he played better? What was it about his game that you thought he played better?
So the things I'm going to list out as better, it's not like they were bad last year, but
Right.
they're better this year to me. Like he looked composed last year. He looks more composed this year. He looked confident last year. He looks more confident this year. He looks like he has a grasp of. He looked like he had a grasp of the offense last year. He looks like he has more of a grasp of the offense this year. He just looks like he's in command. He looks like he's been here before, and so those things to me look like an improvement over last year. Not that they were bad last year, but it looks better to me this year. He's the dude looked like a veteran last year. He looks like a 10-year veteran this year. Like he's just, I mean, there's a lot to like about Purdy. I know people get mad at me for things I've said. I mean, dink and dunk, right? And I don't think I was wrong on the evaluation of his arm strength. I still think that is dead on. I'm not taking that back at all. But all the things that I thought were good, which was mostly everything else, looks the same, if not better, in every facet to me. I saw him step up in the pocket more, which was good. So I think there's a lot to be excited about for 49ers in regards to Brock Purdy.
Oh, no, don't get me wrong. There's plenty to be excited about. I don't know. To me, like that was always my thing. And that's what I talked about last year, even before he really got on his run. People are like, well, what do you like about Purdy? Because it seems like you're down on him. I'm like, well, actually, I like a lot about him. There's a reason I said he was a 3rd-round talent. It was all because of his mental fortitude. And so for me, that was always there, and it still is. Like I just didn't see that. Like I always held that in high regard for him. So for me to see it again, I'm like, that's kind of what I always thought. So I don't know. I'm not disagreeing. I could see why maybe you would think he played better. To me, he looked the same. I mean, even the end numbers were the same, but that's not a bad thing because again, the thought was, from me anyways, was he hasn't had time to improve. It's not fair to expect this major jump week 1, week 2, week 3, because like this offseason was about rehab. It wasn't about improving. So the fact that he's there ready to play week 1 and is even on the field is literally a small miracle in itself. Then to be as good as he was last year, like, okay, like that's
And what's cool too, man,
that is impressive. And so that's why I said I was impressed with Brock after the game. It wasn't that I was impressed with these big time throws or anything. That's not what I meant. I was impressed that he was even on the field and playing every bit as good as he did last year. To me, that is worth saying it was impressive.
Well, what's cool about it to me too, more than probably everything else, is that he did it last year. Then he had a UCL injury, and he does it again this year. So it's over 2 seasons now, which is the same season. You could be like, okay, they didn't know, but like they didn't have the book on him, etc. It's a fluke. It's a flash in the pan. We'll see, all that good stuff you could say last year. But now you're going into the 2nd year of him doing the same thing, and he's yet to lose a game that he's started and finished. So it's really impressive for me. I'm excited about it as a Niner fan. And I think a lot of people, like I'm watching a lot of these comments in here that you guys don't really, I don't think you guys really pay attention to what we've been saying about Brock Purdy. Everything I've said about Brock Purdy, I still think I haven't changed any stance on Brock Purdy. 0. Everything, all my concerns about Brock Purdy, still there. All the good things I saw about Brock Purdy, still there. I'm just saying all the good things, like his confidence. I always thought he had great confidence. It just looks like it's even more so now. Like I haven't changed my evaluation of Brock Purdy at all this entire time. I think people, because I spent a lot of time defending the prejudgment of Trey Lance, they assumed I thought Brock Purdy was trash or something. Never said that. So I just think it's nice now, though, that Trey is gone and we can focus on the 49ers quarterback. I mean, that's the one good thing about Trey being gone, is we can focus on the 49ers and their quarterback, who is Brock Purdy.
Yeah, and people are like, well, I'm glad you guys are coming around. Is he better than Trey? I mean, I'm pretty sure Ryan's had a very similar point to mine, and I know what I said. I said it multiple times. I'm not going to go find you the clips. I don't need to defend things that I did say, that I know I said, or that I didn't say. But one thing that I said was, in this moment, yes, he is. That's why I said he's Mr. Right Now. Like that. that hasn't changed. In this moment, he's 100% better than Trey. He played better than Trey. I've said that 1,000 times over. The question was, who's going to be better long term? And for me, I was willing to take my chance on Trey. Now, he's not here anymore. So it's really not a point of conversation. But if the question is who's better right now, I've never said that it was anything other than that. Basically, once the season was over and I saw 7 games of Brock Purdy, early on, I'm sure I was like, oh, listen, it's a game, it's whatever. After the Miami game, I made a video and was like, oh no, Trey's still going to be the starter. But as soon as the season was over, I always said Brock was going to start if he was healthy. There was nothing that Trey could do to quote unquote win a competition. And who's better right now, it's Brock. Who do I think is going to be better long term? I'm willing to take my chances on Trey because I think he would be better long term. That's what I've always said. So
yeah,
I think I've answered that question 1,000 times over.
My opinions on Brock Purdy and Trey Lance have not changed the entire time they've been with this team. I mean, go check my Twitter. They're the exact same as they've always been. The only thing with Brock Purdy is last year I had him like 15 to 20. This year I'm moving him up, and I got a show after we're done. I'm going to do a stream where I ranked all 32 quarterbacks, and I'm going to talk about my evaluation of that as well. But I mean, nothing has changed on my evaluation of either quarterback. So I find it interesting that people have misinterpreted or
people hear what they want to hear. Like I said, I'm not going to defend any. I mean, my mind hasn't changed. Nothing has changed about what I've said. I just don't need to defend something that I didn't say. So there's no point. And I don't have the voice for it. I don't have the energy for it. I had a hell of a weekend. It is what it is. I'm ready to roll. Let's go. 49ers won. That's what I care about. Trey's a quarterback on the Dallas Cowboys. If you want to talk about Trey Lance, there's just no point in doing it here. He's not a 49er. So unsung heroes. I want to start doing this weekly with you because this is going to be my first show after, well, I don't want to say that. I'm doing post games, but my first show after like sitting down and rewatching the game and figuring it out. Sometimes when you watch live, you're not going to see these types of players. But to me, there are unsung heroes that deserve to be talked about each and every week. Guys that aren't going to be talked about the way they should. People are going to talk about Brock Purdy. People are going to talk about CMC. They're going to talk about Brandon Ayuk when he balls out, or Debo or Kittle. Like, those are the obvious things. Drake Jackson when he gets 3 sacks. Like, these are obvious. We know these players played well, but I think there are players every week that are reasons also why you won that aren't going to get the love. And to me, I have 3 of these players. I don't know if there's anybody that you had as kind of an unsung hero or somebody that just deserves credit that may not get it when we talk on these shows. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I got 2 guys that jump out to me. And they're Aaron Banks, Jake Brendel. Aaron Banks had the best. Aaron Banks had the least amount of pressures allowed in the game. Oh, better than Trent Williams. Jake Brendel did as well. Like, so it was Banks, Williams, and then Brendel. But if you're watching Banks and Brendel in the run game, phenomenal. And I think it was almost every single run went up to the middle or the left side in that game. Kind of typical for the Niners. They don't run to the right for whatever reason. I guess it's because you got Trent Williams over there on the left side, so why not? But Banks and Brendel, man, if you go back and watch the run blocking, it was just insane. And they didn't allow barely any pressures on the quarterback. Yeah. That left side, from the center to the left side of the offensive line, is like locked up. One of the best. I honestly think Brendel, Banks, and Williams they're up there, man. Like top.
It's a top trio for sure.
Yeah, for sure, man. The O-line, I think, and actually, I think we're going to get to McKivitz and Burford, but from a run blocking standpoint, they all look pretty damn good. But from pass blocking, Brendel, Banks, Williams, really good. Go watch. If you guys watch back the game, focus on those guys and their run blocking. It was outstanding.
Yeah, and that's cool because those are 2 guys I didn't even have on my list. So this is why I like doing this. I had 3 players, and I think one of them is getting some love. So I'll start with them first. But when I watched the game live, I was so impressed with how good he played. And there may not be numbers out there that are going to prove it. So maybe not everybody knows, but if you didn't, Eric Armstead.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Like, he made that defensive line go this weekend. He is so unstoppable one-on-one up the middle, so unstoppable. He collapsed that pocket repeatedly, put people in the lap of Pickett, forced him to go outside. Eric Armstead was a one-man wrecking crew, and it was phenomenal because where I was sitting was not directly behind the end zone, but kind of off in the corner. So anytime anytime Pittsburgh was going away from us, it was like I had a perfect view of what was happening at the line of scrimmage on a regular basis, and I loved to watch it. And the same thing when they were coming back this way and they got close, you could see everything. Down in and down out was absolutely wrecking the game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And like I said, the stats may not be there, but other people have stats because of what he did. And I've got to imagine people are talking about him because he is a big time player on this team, but he absolutely deserves his credit. And then I have two more players for you, and they're both special teams guys. One of them is Charlie Warner. Charlie Warner is a phenomenal special teamer, a very good tackler, just plays gaps perfectly, knows exactly what he's doing on special teams. We know he's a good blocker on offense, but as a special teamer, he is so crucial to this special teams like kickoff unit. He was all over the place. I loved watching him play. And the last one is Mitch Wishnowsky. How many times are you going to give a punter credit? But I'll say this, watching him compared to the Steelers punter, we're blessed. The Steelers punter was awful. And it's funny because there was Steelers fans. One thing I said in the opening of the show was how knowledgeable Steelers fans are. They're like, yeah, and he actually beat somebody out. He's terrible. And they were talking about their punter and kind of the origin story of him. Mitch Wishnowsky was so good. He has probably 5 or 6 different kicks in his arsenal, and he was money the whole time. If he needs to sky punt it to allow the special teams to get there and make a play, he can do that. Yeah. If he needs to put a knuckleball out there to confuse the returning player like he did, he can do that. If he needs to coffin corner it, he can do that. His game, his ability to punt and just kick in general was on full display in this game. And again, a lot of people probably aren't going to give him love. They absolutely should. Mitch Wishnowsky's a damn good punter, and I think his array of skills were definitely on display this weekend. I thought it was pretty cool to watch.
I agree, and I got 3 more actually.
Okay, let's go.
Thinking about this, because I didn't even prepare for this show, but thinking about it, can we give a shout out to Ray McLeod for not only for how reliable he has been in the kick return, punt return game, and he does a great job. He always gains positive yards. But that run blocking for CMC on that 65-yard run that he got was, obviously BA was amazing. He pancaked the guy on that run blocking. But Ray, I think that's why Kyle really likes Ray so much. You got to be able to block to be a wide receiver for the 49ers. And on that block and on that play for CMC, Ray was just, those guys were blocking 65 yards downfield, right? Aaron Banks was one of the first people in the end zone. Like the whole team blocks as a whole. But I want to give Ray a shout out because he made me feel a lot better now. Like I'm excited about Ronnie Bell. But when I assumed Ray was going to be out, I was a little concerned because he's a rookie and I didn't know if we were going to just rely on Ronnie Bell off the jump from the kick return game. But Ray made me feel a lot better, and he was solid in that regard. Now, the other 2 guys that I think are a little bit unsung heroes, because we know Bosa's Bosa. Armstead, you pointed out how great he played. Hargrave, amazing, right? Drake Jackson, phenomenal. But I think we need to acknowledge Clelin Ferrell as well as Javon Kinlaw. They both played really well as well. And the 49ers defensive line right now has me excited, man. I'm really excited about the whole entire defense, including that depth at the defensive line with Clelin Ferrell and Javon Kinlaw. Man, hats off to him. I hope he plays well this year, man. Earns himself a contract for next year, wherever that is. I don't think it'll be with the Niners, but somewhere.
I threw some things in at the end, and if you have them, great, but I didn't give it to you as a topic because it was just kind of more of little things that I think from my perspective being at the game, just some random takeaways that I'm going to end with. And I have a funny one about Javon Kinlaw in a good way, but I agree with you. Kinlaw deserves to be in there, and Clelin Ferrell definitely deserves to be in there. This is I love this, man. I love giving these guys praise that wouldn't normally get it. And I think you're absolutely right on all of them. They do deserve it. Now that we've given all the praise in the world, there are still some areas of opportunity for this team. There was a couple things that I would like to talk about anyways going forward.
Yeah.
Is there any areas of opportunity that you saw coming out of this game? I mean, obviously, I think in a blowout win, going on the road, it damn near looked perfect. I'm not going to say it didn't look great because it definitely did. It looked better than I think most people expected, but it wasn't perfect, and it never will be. That's like a Kyle Shanahan quote. That's something he would say. It's never perfect, and it never will be. But I think there was a couple things that can be cleaned up. So, what areas of opportunity did you see from this weekend?
There's 3, right? And I think fans, not all fans want to hear this stuff, but as I've been a coach for a long time, over a decade, and what you realize as a coach is especially in professional sports, if you it doesn't matter if you win the game or not, you can blow out the team by 40. I bet Cowboys right now are looking at film on how they can improve. The Niners, despite beating the hell out of Pittsburgh Steelers, they're looking at film on how to improve, right? And that's how I approach the way I cover the 49ers too. Now, I know a lot of fans they just want to focus on the positive sometime, and that it is what it is. But for the 49ers, as far as areas of opportunity, there are 3 things that I saw coming away from this game.
And real quick too, the reason I call it areas of opportunity is because that's what it is. This isn't let's crap on the 49ers. This is what can you improve on? Not hey, let's hit the panic button or oh man, these guys really screwed up or this really went wrong. It's areas of opportunity. What can you improve on? What can you build upon? So anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, so the first one that off top is 11 penalties for 85 yards, right? Like,
yes,
if you take that away, I don't know if the Steelers even score a touchdown. So they got to, I mean, that's not in a close game, you can't have 11 penalties for 85 yards. So the 49ers definitely have to tighten that up. And I mean, it's kind of typical for week 1 type stuff. So that's definitely an area where you can improve. The second thing, which I don't think is ever going to change because he's never shown the desire to do it, is Kyle Shanahan just leaving starters in too long, using them too long, specifically, I'm talking about CMC. I think he was in probably, 2 possessions too long in that game. My 15-year-old son was like, Dad, why are they still running CMC like this? I'm like, I don't know, dude. Like, good point. He's 15 and he noticed that. So using CMC too much when the game is in hand, you have Elijah Mitchell, you got Jordan Mason. Throw those guys in there because CMC is so crucial, man. We don't need to risk anything with that. And I mean, that probably goes for a lot of the starters. You probably could have eased back on some of these other guys too. And then the third opportunity is just the right side of this offensive line. I'm not very confident in it, Burford or McKivitz. Now, I don't want to overreact. And again, I think they were good in the run blocking. But I am concerned when you go against these elite pass rushers. And I really hope that Kyle Shanahan starts scheming protection a little bit more for that right side, particularly when McKivitz is up against an elite passer rusher and a for sure passing down. There's things he can do to assist him. So those are the 3 areas that I noticed.
I actually have an anecdote in my random takeaways about CMC that is I'm going to push back on that, but I don't think it's something that would be noticed unless you were at the game. And so I'm glad that you brought that up because I'm hearing that a lot. And if I was watching on TV, I think I would agree with that. But I don't agree that he was in too long only because of I don't agree that he was necessarily in too long because of Shanahan. I'll say that. Not that he wasn't in too long. There was something that I saw and I'm going to bring it up. But as far as areas of opportunity, penalties was the big one. You talked about that. And everybody's talking about Colton McKivitz as an individual. Listen, he was going against arguably the best pass rusher in the league. Like we all say it's probably Bosa, but if it's not Bosa, it's probably Watt. And at least he's in the conversation. There's 4 or 5 guys that maybe you can make an argument for are the top guys in the league, and Watt is one of them. He just is. In fact, he broke the all-time Steelers sack record in this game. It was crazy. Of all the great players that have played for the Steelers, Watt broke that record. Yeah. And he's not even 30, is he? I mean, how old is he? Like 27, 28? I don't know how old he is. Either way, it's crazy. So he's a hell of a player. And that's a hell of a test week one. And there was a lot of times they put McKivitz out on an island. You know, he did give up, I believe it was 3 sacks, but one of them I actually think was on Purdy, the very last one. Purdy stayed at the launch point. McKivitz actually, I thought, did a good job of pushing Watt and forced him to go around in a loop. But because Purdy just stayed at that launch point, he was able to get there and get the strip sack. There were 2 other plays that Purdy actually saved him, where Purdy was able to evade Watt, and really Watt got in pretty quick, or Purdy just got rid of the ball quickly. So, you know, there was one time where a sack came through and people are going to blame McKivitz, and I think it was on Purdy, but there was 2 more that could have been sacks that Purdy kind of saved McKivitz bacon on. So it kind of, you know, it evened out a little bit. But Spencer Burford to me is I don't think being talked about enough, because everybody wants to talk about Colton McKivitz, and he was the big question coming into this season. Was it Colton McKivitz? And I think that we all expect that Burford was going to improve this year, and maybe he still will. It's one game. I don't want to overreact to one game. I really don't. But I have to be honest in my assessment of what I saw for this one game. And not only did he get the penalties, which, you know, happened, people may have brushed it under the rug, so it didn't really kill the 49ers and they blew out the Steelers, but he got the penalties. But there was a couple times where he got whooped so bad, Ryan, where I was watching the all 22 back, and I was watching a completely different side of the field. I was trying to figure out like what coverage the Steelers were playing on this particular play. And so I'm looking at the bottom left corner of the field, and he got whooped so bad that out of the corner of my eye, I'm like, hold on a second. Did I just see that right? I went back and watched it, and then I went back and watched the whole game and just watched him because of it. And there was times where he got whooped bad. There was one where he went to put his arms out to engage and completely whiffed the player, didn't even touch him, and they just sideswiped his arms and ran right by him. So that has to get cleaned up. Burford was in and out of the lineup last year, and I think as a rookie, knowing that Banks couldn't even really get on the field, and we saw how good he was in year 2, the fact that Burford could even get on the field his rookie year was impressive. And we had hoped that that major leap would come from him, maybe like it did Banks. And maybe it will, but right now it's not there yet. And there is major area of opportunity for him. So if we're worried about McKivitz, I think we should be just as worried about Burford and potentially the right side as a whole. And I know you said the right side specifically, but I think again, a lot of people are really on McKivitz, and Burford is kind of skating by here. And honestly, out of the 2, knowing that McKivitz went against the best pass rusher, I think McKivitz played better than Burford snap in and snap out. That's just me.
So, well, I mean, I know statistics can be, you know, not necessarily the full picture. You got to actually watch the film, watch the video to understand what's really going on. But Burford gave up 4 pressures, and McKivitz gave up 5. Now, he was going against TJ Watt, so that does make sense. But I think there's an area.
And Burford had the 2 penalties.
Right, exactly. But I think there's and we're speaking of areas of opportunity. That's on Kyle Shanahan has to understand like what he's got over there on the right side and what situations is he going against. I mean, Bosa's getting double teamed, you know, often, right? Was TJ Watt getting double teamed? I didn't see that. I didn't see that from the 49ers. Like, where's the scheme of protection? Like, why not have an extra tight end over there? Why not have Juice Check chipping or protecting the quarterback on that side as well? Like, I think Kyle Shanahan needs to do a better job of just like, hey, man, like, prioritize protection, especially when you got an elite pass rusher like TJ Watt going against Colton McKivitz. It's not – look, and I understand people say, hey, when I'm against Colton McKivitz, he did okay. He gave up 3 sacks, right? But he was on an island most of the time. Should he have been on an island most of the time? I don't think so. I think this season is 100% reliant on Brock Purdy staying healthy. And so you have to make that the number one, like that should be your number one priority is protecting Brock Purdy above everything else.
We knew TJ Watt going into this game was not only somebody who gets a lot of sacks, but somebody that gets a lot of strip fumbles. Right. And he got 2 of them this game. Now, one of them Brock Purdy recovered, the other one he did not recover. But all I could think on that final one was, thank God he was not in his throwing motion. because if that arm was coming forward and he ripped his arm, I can't even imagine what the hell the outcome would have been. And I'm glad we didn't even have to figure it out, but that worried me. And I agree. I mean, it was interesting to see how often, especially early in the game, they went empty. Now, again, it worked out for the most part. I'm really not going to kill Kyle Shanahan because they won the game and Purdy did get out of there safely. But I think throughout the season, there's certain pass rushers you have to respect on a different level. I think Watt is one of them. I think Reddick is one of them. I think Parsons is going to be one of them. We're going to see other players throughout the year. We'll see where Garrett lines up. If he's not lining up over Trent Williams and goes to the right side, you got to figure out a way to help out there. There's just guys that are so good. Even if you have somebody good across for them, not named Trent Williams, even if McKivitz is, let's say he's the 15th best tackle in the league. Like we'll just say that's where he's at, which is good. It's not good enough to stop all-time great caliber players, right? Yeah. By yourself. You can't expect that. You have to be able to help him out, and you have to understand that the objective is to keep Brock Purdy upright this whole season. And the only way to do that is to make sure he gets out of these games untouched as much as possible. It's football. He's going to get hit. He took plenty of them and was able to fight through them. He's a tough kid. I get all that. But if you can avoid even one, maybe that one is the difference. Maybe that's the one where he gets hurt. If you can avoid even one by helping out and chipping or doing what you got to do, you have to do that. So going forward, I would like to see a little bit more help instead of leaving McKivitz out on an island.
It only takes one. You know, it only takes one, dude. And then the season is a different story.
Yeah. Keenan says CMC didn't need to be in most of the fourth quarter, to be honest. Let Jordan Mason get reps. Again, I'm going to talk about that, so stay tuned. That's a teaser. I've got a different perspective on that one. But before we get to that, let's talk about some NFC overreactions. And I say overreactions because I think a lot of people, everybody does it. Not a lot of people. We're all doing it. We all have got this picture drawn of what players are after week one, what teams are after week one. And it's a complete overreaction because every year this happens where a player starts out slow, or a team starts out slow, and we're like, what the hell is going on? Or a team starts out hot and you're like, wow, are they good? And then they fizzle out. So what are some of your NFC overreactions right now? And normally I would say football, but because the 49ers are in the NFC, I think we should just stick to what pertains to the 49ers. And we can go NFC West, you can go NFC, however you want to do this. What are some of your overreactions right now?
Well, the biggest overreaction I have is Seattle. Like, what the hell? Seattle, you're losing to the Rams? Are the Rams? So are the I want to get your take. Are the Rams better than we expected, or is Seattle worse than we expected, or is it both? Man, I did not expect. I mean, we thought the Rams were tanking, right? Nobody expected the Rams to come out and beat Seattle week one, man. So I want to get your opinion on that one. Are they just, is it just week one type stuff, or did we overestimate the Seahawks and underestimate the Rams? And, maybe, I don't know if we'll have time today, but I would like to talk about the Rams because that game is coming up too. So I wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, I think for me, that's a great, overreaction to talk about because you're right. I mean, when we put a pulse on it, it was like, all right, 49ers and Seahawks and everybody else. And most of us picked the 49ers to win the division, but by like a game, right? And I think a lot of us picked Seattle to split with the 49ers, which, by the way, I'm not changing that after 1 week. If we're 6 weeks in, maybe I'll start to look at it and go, okay, they're just not what I thought they were. But 1 week, I'm not going to freak out too much. But you're right. I also think I don't like this from the NFL. This is just me personally. One of my biggest gripes with the NFL is two things. Division games should never be on a Thursday night, and they should never be opening week. That's just my opinion because they hold so much weight into how the season plays out and who wins divisions. And week one is always the biggest crapshoot. And I think division games are crapshoots a lot of the times. I mean, when you look at the 49ers, when they went to the Super Bowl with Kaepernick at the helm, what did they tie the Rams one game and lost to them another in division? And the Rams were awful that year. They lost to Arizona a couple years ago and Colt McCoy. I mean, division games are always just weird anyways. Then you add in the oddity that is week 1. Anything can happen. Look at Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, 45% completion, 82 yards passing against a division opponent. You're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? The same thing happened to him last year against Pittsburgh. He threw 3 picks in week 1. Strange things happen week 1, especially in division games. So I don't know necessarily what to make of it. I could see a scenario where the Rams lose their next 5.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a possibility. Or maybe they are better than what we thought. Maybe Seattle's worse. Time will definitely tell. And I think this week we'll know a lot more about the Rams. Although I don't know if it's fair to really look at a team and judge if they're good or bad based off of playing the 49ers. Because if they look awful, I think the 49ers have the ability to make a lot of teams look bad. They're that talented. And so I don't know for sure. But I think that's a great one. Let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys. That's another overreaction. Again, another division game. 40-0. Not only is Dallas going to win the Super Bowl now, which that's cool. I didn't realize that was going to happen, but the Giants are atrocious. They don't have anything going for them coming off of a year where they went to the playoffs. I think that's another overreaction that we're getting off of week 1. It couldn't have looked any worse for the Giants. It really couldn't have looked any better for Dallas. But when you get into the weeds of that game, what I see, at least from the Dallas side, is, man, I mean, they started up basically 14-0 or 13-0 because I think they missed the extra point, 13-0 without even the offense having to do anything.
Right.
They had a pick 6, then they had a special teams touchdown or whatever it was from the blocked field goal. Yeah, the defense and special teams. So Dak didn't have to. There was no pressure on Dak to go out and win that game. It was a rain game. He was inaccurate a lot of the times. I mean, is he vastly improved over last year? Is he the Dak from last year? Is he the Dak from 2-3 years ago? I don't know, but I can't say for sure what he is based off of that game because there was no pressure on him. So I think there's just a lot of really interesting takes after week 1 on all fronts, whether it's players, whether it's teams, what have you. But to me, like, those were the 2 big ones, the in-division one and then the Dallas Cowboy one. And we're going to find out real soon on both these guys because I think the 49ers are a barometer. We expect that the 49ers are a really good team. We saw it in week 1. Now we get to see what the Rams truly are potentially this week. And in week 5, we're going to find out what Dallas is. We're going to find out if that defense is what they think it is because they think they have the best defense in the league. And I would beg to differ and say that you do not have the best defense. The 49ers do, just like they did last year, and they do again. But we'll see week 5. We'll find out.
I think so. I disagree slightly. I think the Cowboys defense is legit. Like I
agree, it's legit. Yeah. We're splitting hairs when we're talking about the best defense. I do think it is a very good defense. Right. I don't think it's the best defense, and I think people are saying that it is after 1 week.
I would say they're top 3, 4 in the NFL for sure.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So I don't think that's necessarily an overreaction, but overall as the team, like, are they going to win the Super Bowl because they beat the Giants 40-0? That's probably an overreaction. The same way I don't jump on that conclusion with the Niners. I got to see, my team, every team play out. I think it's just very hard first week. I mean, pretty much everything you say after 1 week is an overreaction.
For sure.
Because it's 1 freaking week,
Yeah, and Nick brings up a great point. The Cowboys are always overhyped every season. It's not just this year. But I think Dallas is a very good team. I don't want to disrespect them because I think they are a good team. I just think they're being overhyped right now. Like, based off of 1 week, I think everybody's looking at them and saying they're clearly better than Philly in that division. It's like, no, are they though? I mean, sure. My whole thing, and I have a friend, a very close friend who's a Dallas Cowboy fan, and we talk about it pretty frequently. But my whole thing is, I know that Dallas is a good team, but I can't judge them until they start winning in the playoffs and making these deep runs. And the other thing is, I expected Philly and still expect Philly to kind of ramp up as the season goes. They did a great job replacing big name players through the draft with guys that I think are going to be very good. However, they're young. And so I think it's going to take a while. And they have 2 new coordinators. I think it's going to be a while. And it's going to be one of these things that we're going to see Philly, and you're going to see them kind of slowly doing this throughout the season. So week 1, for them to get a win on the road against, we know, a very well-coached team, yes, I would expect them to beat the Patriots. I wouldn't expect them to blow them out in that scenario, especially as these players are kind of getting used to what they are in the NFL. And I think you're going to see them throughout the season maybe hit some bumps in the road that we didn't see them hit last year. But I think at the very end of the season, I'm still putting my money on the 49ers and Philly. Dallas, I think, is probably that third team, but I can't say that they're better than either the 49ers or Philly in the regular season.
What about the Lions? Is this an overreaction on the Lions? What do you think about the Lions?
I think it's a reaction, but I don't know if it's an overreaction. I think once we knew Chris Jones was out and Kelsey was out, I don't think it was a bold prediction to pick the Lions to win that game. I really don't. And
the receivers didn't help them at all. Like, they probably should have won that game had the receivers just caught a
ball. Yeah. No, I agree with that. But I think the Lions also are a good team. Mm-hmm. So they're not a team that in 5 weeks, if they played Kansas City, that I would pick to beat Kansas City then. Yeah. But I think they are definitely a playoff team, and I think that they are going to win that division. And I think a lot of people thought that going in. So I don't know if it's an overreaction. I think some people, it took a while. It's taken a while for them to come around, and they didn't believe it. And so now that they beat the defending champs, they're on board. I think there was a lot of us that were on board already with the Lions kind of going to the playoffs. So I think it's a reaction.
After week 1, those are my top 4 right now: Niners, Eagles, Cowboys, Lions. Those in the NFC. Now, obviously, it's week 1, so we'll see what happens next week. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Hold on, I want to see what he says. Oh, Dwayne Spencer says, it's funny how no one wants to crown the Cowboys with their performance, but the Niners beat Pittsburgh, and hell yeah, we're for real. I think it's different because Dwayne, and you might be a Cowboy fan coming over from Boss's show, which I appreciate you if you are, but it's different because the 49ers, 3 out of the last 4 years have been in the NFC Championship. Like, we already know that they're for real. And week 1 is just like reminding people that they're for real. Dallas has not been in an NFC Championship. If Dallas was in the NFC Championship last year, okay, listen, they came out and they stamped their point. The 49ers, anybody who's paying attention knew they were for real. It was just the 49ers issue is, can they start out quickly and potentially get the number 1 seed? That's where their issues have been. It's not, hey, when we get to the end of the season, are they going to be one of those final 4 teams in the NFC? We know that they are, barring crazy injuries. That's what they've proven they are. However, can they get that number 1 seed, and can they overcome starting slow, which the last couple years, starting 2-4 and 3-5, that's what we had to know. We got our answer. Yes, they can start out quickly. They can jump on people early, which has not been the case necessarily. So for us, that's why we're feeling good about it. But our expectations were absolutely there for real, and we should have those expectations based off of a Super Bowl and 2 other NFC championships 3 of the last 4 years. If Dallas was coming off that, we would know they were for real as well. So we'll see. You gotta show me something in the playoffs. And right now, the 49ers, the last 2 years, have beaten Dallas in the playoffs. And if Dallas wins week 5, kudos to them, but it still ain't the playoffs. So, and if they lose week 5, then you really got to sell me that they can beat the 49ers in the playoffs, because honestly, it's not really a rivalry until the other team wins. And right now, the 49ers are 2-0 in the playoffs. And if they beat them in week 5, I think that's a game that Dallas has to win to really put themselves on the map. If they lose that game, people are going to be like, same old Cowboys can't beat the 49ers. They have to win week 5. The 49ers don't have to. Because if Dallas doesn't, I don't know how they find any confidence against the 49ers in the playoffs. I really don't. Where? How? Especially if it looks like it did the last 2 years. You know what I mean? So we'll see how that plays out. All right. Random takeaways. So here's some of my random takeaways that I had in the game being there that I don't know if would have necessarily been caught while you were watching on TV. And maybe you did, and you can keep me honest here. But one of them was CMC and him playing in the 4th quarter, or well into the 4th quarter. So what I noticed was CMC has autonomy to come in and out of the game as he pleases. Here's what I saw happening. Elijah Mitchell multiple times went to run onto the field, and CMC looked at him and told him, no, you stay out. I'm staying in. And then there were other times where CMC was in for multiple plays, and then it would get to third down, and he would point over at Mitchell and be like, your time to come out. I'm going in on third down. So, yes, ultimately, you can put it on Shanahan because he's giving his player that autonomy. But CMC really, to me, looks like he has full control of when he plays and when he doesn't play based off of what he wants to do. And so that was a random observation that I saw that, again, I agree he shouldn't be in there. And maybe the point is, hey, you can't give CMC that choice late in the game because he's a player. And of course he's going to want to play, right?
That is the point.
But it is interesting to see that. And I wouldn't know that watching on TV unless they had the cameras pointing over at him and you see that, which most of the time you don't see those things.
I think that's great insight that you would only see at the game, and I appreciate you sharing it, but it doesn't change my opinion of it. Kyle needs to overstep that. Hey, CMC, you're the man. I understand, and I appreciate that fact about you that you want to play, but you are too important to us. You're not playing. Go take your helmet off and stand on the sideline like that.
Yeah,
it doesn't change my opinion of that. Like he's too important to this team, man. He is too important to this team. I really want Kyle to do two things: protect CMC and Brock Purdy at all costs. Like once the game is in hand, protect them. Brock Purdy throughout the game has to have. And here's the other thing too: a lot of quarterbacks, especially the veterans, and Brock Purdy's he's a second-year guy now. He's not a rookie anymore, but a lot of veteran quarterbacks also take it upon themselves to make sure that they have the proper protections in place. And so I want Brock Purdy to be able to do that. I want to make sure Kyle Shanahan is allowing Brock Purdy to do that. He's got to protect himself, not only from a scheme standpoint, but just get rid of the ball, be aware of who's coming. Like, it's so important, man, for this season. Brock Purdy, CMC, got to stay healthy. Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy have to be on top of that. It has to be a priority, man. Yeah,
absolutely. And then I have three other random ones that really, I mean, don't even necessarily have to do a lot with the game, but I talked about it earlier, but Steelers fans are extremely knowledgeable. One of the more knowledgeable fan bases I've come across. I mean, they know that team inside and out. The random person, the 70-year-old lady that's sitting behind you in the stands, the 14-year-old kid sitting next to you, they can rattle off things about that team like most other fan bases cannot. It was very impressive how much they knew about their team, and it seemed like everybody had that knowledge of that team, how much they love that team, and overall just how nice they were. And it wasn't like, okay, they had to be nice because they got their butt whooped. No, it was the 24 hours before. You would see Steelers fans and they'd dap you up and good luck and thank you for coming here. We appreciate you're here. Man, you guys are really taking over. I've never seen this many fans from an opposing team. Like, they were very, very nice people and very knowledgeable of their football team. So I just, one last shout out to Steelers fans. You guys are fantastic, fantastic group of people. Can't say enough nice things about you. And then the last two things that I would say is, one, I told you I was going to give you a Kinlaw story, and I don't know if it showed up on television, but they had the 49er or the Steelers backed up. It was one of the times they had the Steelers backed up, and it was right next to where we were at. Kinlaw beat his man so bad, Ryan, that he thought it was a screenplay. You know how players, like, they'll just let him go? He beat him so bad that he literally thought it was a screen. He stopped and didn't pursue Pickett, literally stopped and started backpedaling because he thought it was a screen. And then he's like, oh crap, it's not a screen. And he continued to pursue Pickett. I just thought it was hilarious and it was hilarious in a good way because he was so good on that play and really good throughout the game. But on that play in particular, it just showed the flash of talent that he really has. And just being able to beat the guy in front of him so soundly, to think that it was a screenplay, I thought that was a pretty funny thing. Did you see that on TV at all? Did you catch that?
No, but I think maybe you tweeted about it. I'm not sure, but I saw that somewhere from you. Yeah, no, that's hilarious.
It was funny, man. It was very funny.
Two things, man. One thing that was hilarious. The guys that were on your show, the Behind Enemy Lines, the twins,
the Steelers.
If you guys want some entertainment, man, go watch their post game reaction.
Oh, did they lose their minds?
Yeah, man, it's fun to watch. I enjoy in their sorrow, even though I'm sure they're nice guys, but it was actually fun to watch. And then the other thing I want to ask you, man, why? So I live out here in the same area as where Ian Book went to high school,
Yeah.
at Oak Ridge High School. Now it's about 30 minutes from my house.
Yeah.
And he worked out for the 49ers today. Why? Like, I want to get your
I
take.
don't know.
Why are they doing
I
that?
mean, the only thing I can think of is that maybe the Jets want to pull Allen from us because they need a backup now. I mean, I feel so bad for the Jets fans and Aaron Rodgers, man. I mean, dude, that was like one of the NFL storylines this year was Aaron Rodgers in a Jet uniform, and they got 5 snaps from him, 1 throw. Like,
that sucks, man.
I
125
feel
million guaranteed,
so
right?
bad, man. I feel so bad for the Jets fans on that, man. That is awful, and I feel so bad for Aaron Rodgers. But then on the flip side, I feel good for Zach Wilson, who's a player that I didn't think was good coming out of college. I've said it a million times. He's shown everything that I thought he would be in a bad way the first 2 years, but I wanted to see a third year out of him, and I didn't know if he would ever legitimately get that opportunity. And now he does get that opportunity, and he has learned all offseason from a great quarterback, and Aaron Rodgers is still going to be around helping him out, I'm sure. One thing we saw from Aaron Rodgers this offseason, I think that a lot of people didn't think he was, he's actually a really good mentor. And I don't know if he was that for Love. It kind of sounds like he was, but he definitely was that for Zach Wilson. And I hope that continues. And now Zach Wilson gets his chance. And so I'm happy for him on that front.
Yeah.
But gutted for Rodgers and really for Jets fans. That's awful, man. It's absolutely awful. So
yeah, I would have loved to see the season play out, man. I really that sucks, dude. And I think they guaranteed the guy like 100 million
a lot
plus.
of money. A lot of money.
And he may be done. Like, he might not ever play football again after this. It's a long recovery for an Achilles when you're 39 years old. So yeah, that sucks, man. Yeah.
It really is. And then the last thing is Kinlaw really, I mean, not Kinlaw, but Kittle really can kind of get on my nerves in his post game with his wrestler antics or whatever. But in game, dude, he had me dying. Just the way, like, he really is a big kid. And for the post game and when he's on the mic, it can get a little annoying. But in the game, the way he keeps things light is actually pretty damn funny. There was 2 things that he literally had me laughing out. So on the sidelines, you know, they go to a TV timeout, and Darnold and Purdy are playing catch, right? And just keeping their arms warm. And so Kittle kind of walks out from the sideline and puts his hands out like, Darnold, throw it to me. And Darnold doesn't throw it to him. He throws it to the guy next to Purdy. And Kittle puts his head down like this, like he's super disappointed. And like just shame walks onto the field like, dang, man, you couldn't even show me love. And then during another TV timeout, they're playing like some crazy music, trying to get the crowd hyped because they are just getting obliterated. They're doing anything they can to get people hyped. And Kittle just steps out from the huddle, just starts playing the air guitar and is doing stupid stuff. I just thought it was fun to see the childlike personality come out and how much he really does enjoy playing. I think in huddle, those things are great, keeping people loose. Just playing through again on the mic, it can be very annoying to me, but in game, I actually did enjoy the personality that is George Kittle. I think it's probably a good thing for the team. So,
yeah, it's actually it's good to be there in the game because you see other things. I mean, I actually prefer watching from home, to be honest.
I do
overall,
too.
But you got to get that experience. I'm going to go to the Bengals game this year, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, man, you see little things that you don't see on TV.
Yeah, definitely. So anyways, those were my random takeaways from being at the game. I don't know, like I said, maybe some of them showed through on TV, some of them didn't, but you know, overall I would say that I just had a great time. I couldn't have had a better time. My voice was shot, still is, and it was worth it. It was all worth it. So Ryan, I got to get going, man. I know that you got to get going. I appreciate you. Head over to Ryan's channel, Ryan G. Hensley. You can just type in Ryan Hensley. You'll find his channel. It sounds like he's got a show here coming up right after this or a little bit after this. So check him out over there. To everybody in the chat, much love. I'll be back tonight with Sunil with some new topics, a new fresh perspective. Appreciate y'all. Stay blessed. See you soon. Peace.